Bienvenido a Español con Señor Rosen. Hoy vamos a ver cómo se puede tener éxito en el examen de leer. So we're coming to the end of Theme 2 and soon we'll be completing our final assessment for Year 10. So in today's lesson we're going to be looking at some exam skills and more specifically at the reading element of the GCSE exam. We'll be looking at different techniques to help with reading and also at the different types of questions that you will encounter. Before we start, let's just have a quick check of the video lesson advice. First of all, think about the questions carefully. Pause the video when you're asked to do so, when you see a sign like this. Don't do anything else at the same time. So if your phone rings, ignore it, etc. Have a go at everything on the screen, and also don't forget to take a note of your scores from the task that we do today and feed them back to me via Teams. So the reading exam is worth 25% of the entire exam. At foundation level, the exam is 45 minutes, and at high level it's 60. Section 1 will be in English, which means the questions will be in English and you answer in English. Section 2, the questions will be in Spanish and you'll answer in Spanish. And the third section is a Spanish to English translation. So, before we get started then, have a think about this question. So, what exam techniques can you use to help you in the GCSE reading exam? So, what do we already know? What have you already learnt so far from Year 7 onwards are the sort of things you should do when you're given a reading exam paper. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. So, hit the pause button and have a think. Some of the answers that you may have come up with are things such as don't leave blanks. Every year people do that, especially around Year 10. If you think you don't know it, they do leave blanks. Please don't. Always have a guess, because you might as well have a guess. Use the 5 minutes reading time. The 5-minute reading time is there to help you. It's not there to twiddle your thumbs and look out the window. Please use it, and it will help you to anticipate what sort of questions and what sort of answers you be putting in. Answers do come in order, so don't get confused, just follow it through. Cross out the words that you've already used, so you don't try and use something twice, although I wouldn't recommend getting rid of it completely, because you may want to change your answers after you've considered reading the whole text again. Listen out for negatives. Negatives change sentences, so be very careful of those. Look at what tense have been used. Generally in a text they'll use lots of different tenses, but your question will be asking you something specifically based around one tense. Highlight keywords is another good one. And also, have you given enough points for the answer? If there are 4 marks available, make sure that you have answered with 4 different pieces of information. What answer would make sense? So if you're not sure, think logically. What would actually make sense in this situation? Look out for cognates. We like cognates, they're our friends. However, the opposite to the cognates are false friends, the ones that are there to trick you. And in today's lesson, we're going to look at some of the false friends. What do you know already about Spanish-speaking countries? So if it's a cultural question, think about what you already have learnt throughout the course. Underline keywords. Look out for the examples. There's usually an example at the beginning so that you know how the examiner would like you to answer the questions. Make sure you answer in the correct language. Remember, the first section we spoke about before, the questions will be in English, so you answer in English. The second part of the exam, the questions are in Spanish, so you answer in Spanish. Have you written a number or letter as requested? Sometimes people get confused, and instead of putting a letter or a number, they'll put the person's name or something else. So just make sure you answered it properly. Okay, there are always words in Spanish that sound like other words. So the synonyms are the words that are there to convey the meaning. Okay, so let's have a quick look at some of them. So an alternative way of saying the same word. In English we have lots of these, and in Spanish also. Okay, so we've got 8 of the most popular ones. So I want you to have a go at trying to change these and to say the same word in a different way. For example, near, you'd say it's not far. Okay, no está lejos. Cheap, so the opposite of cheap, it's not expensive. So it's not expensive. Then big, you're saying it's not small. Okay, have a quick go then. Hit the pause button. Okay, let's see how many you've got then. We won't go through them all because it'll take too long. I would say probably the no es verdad, number 6, was the one that people tend to find the most difficult. And so give yourself a score out of 7. Why is it out of 7 and not 8? It's because the first one is an example. Okay. Muy bien. Okay, continuamos con distractors. Distractors are what examiners put in to confuse you in the exam. Okay, so they often come before the information that you really need. So here's an example. When is the market open? El mercado está abierto todos los días, salvo el martes. So, some people would look straight away and think, oh, okay, it's open every day, todos los días. However, if you read on, salvo el martes, that's where the actual answer is, apart from Tuesday. So be very careful of that one. So the market is open every day, apart from Tuesday. Tenses. Like we said before, tenses, if they ask you a question in one time frame, what did she do yesterday, for example, there will also be other tenses in there, such as what she normally does, or what she's going to do, or what her brother did, etc. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to the tenses. So here's a quick question. Who has recently been swimming? Recently is the key word here. So we've got 3 options. They all mention swimming, but the actual answer is this one, because ayer, yesterday, that's the most recent. So who's recently been swimming? Mis amigos y yo nadamos ayer, for yesterday. False friends. So when you're translating into English, or when you're reading a text, look out for the false friends. So they're words that sound like English words, but they mean something completely different. So here we go. We've got a task on the screen for you now. The first one is done for you. La librería is the bookshop. So what I want you to do is have a look through these false friends. There may be some that you haven't seen before. Don't worry about that. Have a look through and see if you can match up. Have a go matching up with the English words on the other side, and then we'll go through the answers. Here we are then, self-assessment. So give yourself a score out of 17. Check the answers on the side. I'm not going to go through them all, but some of the most popular ones that people do get confused. Number 2, actualmente, for the current or present day, because it sounds like actually, and it isn't that at all. Número 6, contestar. People think it's to be in a contest or to compete or something like that. It actually means to answer. And what else shall we have? 18, recordar. Sounds like to record, but it isn't. It is to remember. So there's the sort of things that you need to be looking out for, the false friends. Okay, then we're moving on to positive and negative questions. Now on the positive and negative questions, you have to look out for some words that express the opposite of what has just been said. So there's potential traps, there's certain words that can go in to confuse you, such as the pero, aunque, sin embargo, a pesar de, and excepto. So these ones are the ones to be listening out for and looking out for in the reading. Okay, so I've just got a quick task for you to do now. So answer the questions below with P for positive, N for negative, or P and N if it's both. Okay, the first one is done for you. Lo que me gusta es ayudar a los animales en peligro. So lo que me gusta is your key bit there. So what I like is, so that's your positive. Okay, so look very carefully. Decide if it's positive, negative, or if it's both. Okay, give yourselves a score out of 6. Why 6? Because the first one was an example. Okay, so they're quite straightforward there. Any questions, just let me know via Teams or send me an email. So that one's out of 6. Okay, multiple choice. Now, people do get fooled with multiple choice questions because they think it's the easy part, but actually they are very cleverly testing your Spanish and your understanding. So look out for these. So we've just got one example here. So have a quick look. So mis colegas eran todos muy simpáticos, excepto la jefa, que estaba siempre de muy mal humor. So the question actually says, casi todos sus colegas eran. So almost all of her colegas eran, so of her colleagues. Okay. So the answer is B, because they were almost all friendly, which is B, amables. Okay, te toca a ti. So what I've done is I've taken a GCSE question for you to have a go at. Sorry, it's a little bit blurry, so I have to be kind of stretched across the screen. So what I want you to do is to have a go. Number 2, you can see the box hiding down the bottom. You just have to put A, B or C for each of the answers. Read through the questions, read through the text, and then look at the questions again and decide if it's A, B or C. Okay, you get a total of 5 marks for this. Any questions regarding this, please let me know. So make a note of your score out of 5. Okay, so we've come to the end of today's lesson. I just want you to have a quick look at the remember section down the bottom of what we've been through today. So the synonyms, the distractors, the tenses, the false friends, the cognates, the positive and negative. And also, I just wanted to share with you some advice for the students from the examiner's report from AQA. So each year, after the exams have been completed, AQA produce an examiner's report to share some of their findings of all of the exam papers from everyone in the country. So their advice is to read the instructions to the question, make sure your letters are clearly written when you're answering with a letter, because sometimes they find they can't work out if it's a C or a D, etc. Make sure you use the correct letters, positive, negative, or both, or is it true, false, etc. Make sure you're doing that correctly. Read forwards and backwards in a text from the key word in the question. So looking out for the distractors, looking out for the false friends, etc. Looking out for the things to trip you up there. Don't copy whole chunks of Spanish when you're answering a question. Some people think that if they write the whole thing, they'll be okay, but don't. Be more specific. If you're asked to give one reason, only give one, don't give 5. In the questionnaire type question, include information from the answer and the question in the questionnaire. That's more specifically if you are looking at the questionnaire questions. And also, translate every word in the translation. I always say, if you don't know a word, don't panic. You move on to the next one, because the way it's marked is you are marked per word. So don't panic if you don't understand one word in the translation. Okay, hasta la próxima clase. Don't forget to send me your notes and scores in from today's lesson via Teams. And if you need any extra help in the meantime, or you want to get ahead and have a bit of practice, some more practice for your reading skills, don't forget things that we talk about in lesson about how to improve, such as using past papers, reading books. Maybe you've got a favourite book that you really know well, such as a Harry Potter, etc. If you read the same version in Spanish, it will help you. Newspapers, magazines, reading blogs, and don't forget, the key thing is to learn the vocab. Ok, muy bien. Gracias. Hasta luego.